It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to the Kim Hammer Show. We're glad that you're joining us. I know that I'm competing with the Razorbacks that are playing now. The basketball Razorbacks are playing now, and also at 2 o'clock, the Diamondbacks will be playing at 2 o'clock, so my crowd should be good. Anyway, we're glad to have you listening to the Kim Hammer Show this afternoon. Today on the show, when he gets a chance to call in, we're going to have Chris Dickie, who is with Natural State Recovery. He's actually up in the Batesville area doing some work up there, and we're waiting for him to call in. What we're going to talk to Chris about is they purchased the old Oak Grove High School out there, I think off Highway 10, and we're going to talk to him about how that is going. We knew there was some resistance that he met when he put that in, and we're going to talk to him about that. And I've got a few other things along substance abuse recovery and suicide. We get him on the line. We'll be talking to him about that. Also, we are going to have on in the bottom of the hour till 1 o'clock, we'll have David Ray, who is a candidate for District 40. That was that was Doug House's old seat. Doug chose not to run again for that seat. He'll be a state representative to the end of the year. And as you know, early elections or the primaries are coming up March 3rd, first Tuesday in March, and early voting will be starting very soon on that. So David's been gracious enough to take time off the campaign trail. He'll be calling in as well to be able to answer the questions that we've had other candidates answer as far as where they stand on particular positions. So we'll have David on at the bottom of the hour. One of the things I just wanted to go ahead and make you aware of while Chris is calling in now. I see him lighting up on the phone. He'll be with us here in just a second. But there's two or three things that I want to stress to you that I think are important. The first one is there's a young man, and maybe you saw the article on some of the other media outlets. There's a young man who lives down in Benton. His name is Zane Westbrook. I believe Zane's about 4 years old, and he has been battling a kidney disease for the majority of his life. His dad, Kirk, is going to donate one of his kidneys to Zane, which is a life-saving event because otherwise Zane would have a difficult time surviving very long in this world. So his dad is going to donate a kidney to him. Tomorrow morning from 8 o'clock to 11, I know that's Sunday morning, but you should have plenty of time to get to church and still support this event. But tomorrow morning from 8 to 11 at Holland Chapel Baptist Church in Benton, they're right there, the last exit. Just get off, cross over, and they're not hard to find. They're located right there on the interstate. From 8 to 11, they are going to do a pancake breakfast as a fundraiser to help offset the cost. I know several people that have had kidney transplants, several young people that have had them. It is a costly procedure, plus it's costly to maintain after they get the kidney, and it's a real life adjustment not only for the patient, but also for the donor, which in this case is his dad, Kirk. The money is going to go to Children's Transplant Association to help. The transplant will take place there at Children's. And so I just encourage you, if you have the opportunity, drive down to Benton to Holland Chapel Baptist Church in the morning from 8 to 11, get a good pancake breakfast, and also support a very good cause. Tonight at 6 o'clock at the Enclave there in Benton, the Enclave, ENCLAVE, Event Center, which is right across from the main fire station there in Benton. Alan Clark is going to have a meet and greet from 6 to 7 o'clock. He just got back in town from being gone on business, so he's going to be there with us tonight from 6 to 7 o'clock at the Enclave in Benton. You get a chance to come by and see him, and if you'd like to support him financially, that'd be great. But if nothing else, you get a chance to come by and see him, ask him questions. He'll be speaking about 6:20. Won't be a long event. It's a come-and-go event, so would love to see you come if you can make it tonight. All right, now on the line, and also want to thank our sponsors, which are Everett GMC Buick down there in Saline County. They're at the Alcoa exit. Always appreciate them. Appreciate Phillips, Baxley Mouty, realtors down there, Saline County, Highway 5 and Spring Hill. We'll talk more about them in a little bit. And as always, Edwards Food Stores here in Central Arkansas, and we'll talk more about them. But we appreciate our sponsors that make this show possible. Joining us online is Chris Dickie with the Natural Recovery Center. And Chris, thank you for taking time out. I know you're up there in Batesville, and appreciate you calling in today.
Absolutely, Senator. Thanks for having me on.
So let's talk, if you will, a little bit. First of all, you purchased recently, I believe it's the old Oak Grove High School out there, and is that on Highway 10? Am I right on that geographical location?
It's more like Crystal Hill area, North Little Rock, Maumelle area.
And so what?
Yeah, I guess the general area. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so tell us what the future plans are. Are you already up and running out there? And just tell us how you plan on using that, and how is it going to benefit those with addictions or trying to recover from addictions?
Absolutely, and I appreciate the question. So how I always explain this is, we operate an outpatient clinic right now on the bottom of Cantrell Hill in the old TJ Rainey building, or some call it the former Regions Bank building. So our organization, when we're building our program, just think about or visualize a baseball diamond. And so we just chose to start by building third base first. We noticed when we started that was the biggest gap in services. It's when people leave treatment, there's not a lot of options for people to continue their recovery building for long-term sustained recovery. And so we wanted to fill that gap in terms of aftercare and getting people back on track in their lives. And so we've done that. We've felt like we've done a pretty good job by building our third base. Now with the acquisition of this Oak Grove High School, we're going to be able to add first and second base. And so we'll have a full continuum of care, and with the risk of sounding corny, we'll be able to offer a program that takes someone all the way around the bases to get them home. And that's basically what we're doing out there with that campus. And it's going to be very unique in the sense that, we're going to have, three components. One is medical care, clinical treatment. The second is residential recovery housing. And then the third is life skills training. So we're going to be doing yoga, meditation, nutrition, fitness. We've got a gym, Senator, and it was redone in 2006. It's wonderful. And so our clients, when they've been, having a heavy day of facing trauma or looking at different things in their life that they're wanting to make better, that's exhausting. And so it's good to get out and move around, get the blood flowing. So we've got a gym, we've got a football field. Actually, it's the football field where Darren McFadden used to play in high school, and comes with a track. And so we've got a lot of plans as far as adding activities for our clients to do while they're in treatment on that part of it. And then when they're done there, they're going to go into the outpatient program that we have currently operating. And then your other part of that question was, are we operating yet? And the answer is no on that. We're going to have to spend a substantial amount of resources to get it to where we want it to be. We have plans to be, the premier provider in the state. We lose a lot of our Kansans that are being taken out of state by out of state treatment centers, and I think the large part of that is because Arkansas doesn't have the kind of quality care that these individuals are looking for, and so we're going to build that and see if we can keep our Kansans in Arkansas while they get healthy.
So, and just for the listening audience, I refer people to Chris, unfortunately, on a regular basis. He's been very helpful. I get calls from constituents, pastor of church. I get calls from church members that have family members that are struggling. And Chris has always been very responsive as far as helping someone get in as quickly as possible. So what is just kind of talk people through the process if they have a loved one, and part of it is the loved one who has the problem has to be at the point that they're willing to make the commitment to come and to remain committed or to get started. So do you, with the new center that you're going to have out there, what is the capacity that you're going to be able to take? And just talk people through the process. If they've got a loved one that they're looking to get them help, what would they need to do and how would that look?
Well, sure. And you see, like you said, firsthand on how the initiation is kind of started when someone starts reaching out. It's usually the family, right? There's the family saying, hey, I've got a loved one. They're spiraling out of control. I don't know how to help. When addiction hits, it usually blindsides folks. And so the fact that they call you is very, very positive, because, I think what we've been doing with stigma is trying to erase that and make it more comfortable for people to reach out for help. And I think that's what we're seeing. And that's my hope. And so when they do, the process is pretty simple on our part. I mean, sometimes, not a lot of, this is uncommon common sense. This is industry. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you don't take care of the person that is calling on just a customer relations standpoint, you're doing them a disservice. And that's anywhere across the board. And so we know when someone reaches out, a lot of times it's life and death. And so we want to be responsive. We want to make it as easy and simple as possible to get in our doors. That's one of our parts of our mission. And so when they come in, it's a quick application just to get some history, and then we have a conversation to see where they're at, what's going on in their life, and then we determine if they're a good fit through an assessment, and most of the time they are. And so we just say, bring yourself. If you don't have any transportation, and if we're available, we can go pick people up. I mean, we want to meet them where they're at.
As far as the capacity, when you get the new center, what did you say about it as far as how many you'll be able to take once you're up to capacity?
You can't say we're not swinging for the fences. We know there's a huge need in our state. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have 54 beds. 18 will be designated for our medical detox. And then we're going to have 2 other buildings designated for men and women, and each of those will have 18 beds. And if you've ever seen the kind of topographical overview of Oak Grove campus, we're starting, we're just using, just a third of the property, if you will. And so there's room for other programs. There's room to grow. It's kind of this other space is like a ball of clay. And so I'm in open discussions, brainstorming with other organizations that, might offer kind of like this really holistic wraparound services type of offering that we can have available for people.
How many acres did y'all get with that out there?
It's 26 and some change.
Okay. So a pretty big footprint then. And I know there was some, when you first came out with this idea, there was some resistance from, neighbors in the neighborhood, which is kind of to be expected whenever you mention a recovery center in your backyard. That kind of calmed down a little bit, or are people getting a better vision of what's coming and, what your vision is for it and how it would fit in the neighborhood it's located in?
Yeah, the news came out that we had purchased it. And so it was kind of this knee-jerk reaction, fear of the unknown, what's happening to our community. And it's kind of an interesting area for a high school. It literally is in a residential kind of area. And then you've got this 26-acre campus. And so I appreciated their sensitivity to what we were doing. And the way I handled that was just go talk to them and be fully transparent on what we're doing. And then outside of the town hall that I attended and answered questions, I sat down with more one-on-one neighbors and community members just to kind of get into the weeds on some of their overall concerns. But yeah, it's definitely died down. I'm sure, there's going to be more discussions, obviously, and I want to make myself available to those because, our mission is client-centered, community-focused. And so it's all about being good neighbors and getting individuals back into their respective environments and contributing members to society. That's what it's all about.
And so, we're throwing a lot of effort, energy, money at the problem, the opioid addiction. Of course, you've got you've got other substance abuses out there. Opioid seems to get all the attention. It's the hot button right now and everything. But do you, and I know it's kind of forecast in the future, which is a dangerous thing to do, but you mentioned about people having to go out of state because they're not getting the quality treatment here, or is that because they're not getting the quality treatment here, or because the programs that are offered out of state are uniquely different than what they can get here in the state? And how is it that what you're going to do is actually going to hit the pause button so that people will know that they can stay here in the state and not have to go elsewhere to look for those services?
Absolutely. And I'm going to answer this in two ways. The first one is, a lot of times they leave the state because there is not enough capacity. There's wait lists. If you call a place, probably today, you're at risk for them to say, okay, we're going to put you on a wait list for 2 weeks. And a person in crisis can't wait that long. So they end up going and looking out of state. We are modeling after some other programs in the nation that are doing really good evidence-based treatments. You know this, that I work closely with Kirk Lane, the state drug director, and other individuals from the state. And, when he brings information to me that he's finding that's out of, that's working, we want to make sure to look at that and see if we can implement those changes in Arkansas. And what we've seen in the last couple of years that's really taken a foothold in our state that's really, really working is peer recovery. It's a non-clinical person with lived experience that is a supplement to your clinicians, your doctors, and therapists. And so I always say it's kind of like a person wakes up in a third world country, they don't speak the language. And so a peer recovery specialist knows the terrain, they know the landscape, they know the language, and they know the way out. And so when they're navigating this, sometimes complex behavioral healthcare environment, a peer support specialist is that make or break it person that can keep someone in the seat long enough for that miracle of recovery to take shape. And so we've implemented those types of changes. That's just one example of how the state and our organization works really well together.
So what would you say, and I'm sure you're familiar with other programs. I know, John 316, you're up in Batesville. John 316 is up there just north of Batesville. John 317 is over in Truman, which is the female version of John 16. I think John 316 has a capacity of like 140 beds, and, their model is they've got homes that, hold, I think, up to 12 guys. Proud to say our church actually sponsored one of those homes up there. Kind of sad to say they've got the Saline County house up there, but our church helped sponsor a room in there. So when you look at all the programs that are available, like yours or John 316, John 317, you look at all the treatment. What would you say we are lacking in the way of capacity in order to meet the need in our state? Are we 50% there, 60% there, or is that too vague and too broad of a question for you to be able to realistically answer?
Well, let me just put it in perspective. Our state of close to, maybe the new census will say we're over 3 million. I'm going to say that. So let's just say 3 million Arkansans. We only have 650 treatment beds available for our state. And to put it in perspective, a place like Kansas City, with the population that they have over 2,000, just in the city alone. And so we've got some work to do. It's difficult because a lot of rural places, people will have to drive and have transportation to and from these facilities if they're outpatient. And in some of the rural places like I'm in right now, it's very difficult to do. And so we're just trying to create the infrastructure that can meet the demand. I mean, we're still in triage, unfortunately, where we're trying to stop the bleeding. And then we can focus on, building out more of programs that are effective evidence-based in science and those types of things. So we're still, like you said, I'm glad you raised this question, because you have a lot of different types of programs. You have a lot of wonderful individuals that are trying something, and I always encourage, just look. Like you said, we're in an addiction crisis. However, the opioid, it does get all the media attention, or the attention right now, because fentanyl has literally changed the landscape of addiction. It is a killer, and it does not. It's not prejudiced. It doesn't give you a second chance. It is killing hundreds of thousands of U.S. citizens over the last few years, and so. We're trying to figure out how to build a system that can, stop people from overdosing right now. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of money going towards these new innovative ideas. And so we need these programs. Places like John 3:16. I used to work in the community college here, and we worked alongside John 3:16 and their guests that stayed with them. Or their clients, and then they'd come and work events at the college. I totally believe in John 3:16. It's not treatment. I don't think there's any therapy or counseling happening. I think if it's the last choice that someone has, just to get out of that environment where they've become sick and get away for 9 months to a year, then do it. If that's your last option, and thank God that places like John 3:16 and the female version exist, because when we can't help someone and someone's in crisis, we refer them.
So is it unrealistic?
Like that.
Is it unrealistic to say that to meet the needs of Arkansans, based on your experience and where we are on as you mentioned, the landscape, we're at 650 for 3 million. The new census will come out after the end of this year. Based on other models in other states and populations comparable to ours, is it unrealistic to think that you could fill up 1,500 beds if you had them, or what is the high water mark you think that needs to be aimed for?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm just looking at data. I think we could fill them. But there's a system that exists currently. And other companies don't want to invest money in, unfortunately, it comes down to that, because insurance rates are low and they don't give the kind of revenue that they want, right? So you face some of that challenge. But, if you're just looking at opioid use disorder, 30,000 Arkansans have been identified as having an opioid use disorder. That's just one drug. So, and that's 30,000. And so, yeah, I think we could, if we doubled our treatment bed capacity, we would easily fill those.
Okay. I got 1 minute before I got to go and recognize my sponsors, and I really appreciate you taking time to, call from your schedule, what you're doing up there. So in 1 minute or less, give us some vision of what you think as far as, are we going to be able to get ahead of this at some point in time?
I believe we can. I think we have the right people, and I'm just speaking for Arkansas right now. I think we have the right leadership in place and the right elements to really make a difference in our state. Like 40 years ago, there was a big disruption in treatment, and it's been stagnant for the last decade or more. And so now we're in the middle of another disruption, and what we do right now will save people's lives down the road that don't even need help yet.
Okay.
And so we have the right people in place. And one more thing, I'm going to let you know when we have our groundbreaking. I really would love for you to be there, so I want to invite you.
Would be glad to be there. I've got to go, Chris. We've had Chris Dickie with the Natural State Recovery Online. Appreciate you calling in from Batesville, Chris, taking time out to kind of educate us on this. We'll be back on this topic later. Want to thank my sponsors, which would be GMC Buick down in Saline County, Edwards Food Store, and Baxley Phillips Mowdy down in Saline County. Come back after the show. We'll have David Ray on.
Hey, it's Dave Ellswick. You know, cost is the biggest reason most of you don't check into private and Christian schools for your kids. And we want to change that. We've got partnerships with schools all over the area that's offering half price, that's right, half price, 50% off their tuition. See the complete list of schools at dealsforlittlerock.com. For more information, call Lynn at 501-404-6545.
101.1 The Answer's app is available for download now. Yeah, sure, you can listen to the station on any of your mobile devices, but that's just the beginning. The TalkBack app allows you to voice your opinion and send it directly to us with the touch of a button. Use the Call the Studio to participate in your favorite show. And then there's Dave. Lots and lots of Dave.
So they can dump all sorts of toxic materials.
Go to your phone's app store and search for 101.1 FM, The Answer, and download our app for free today. Take The Answer with you anywhere with our free mobile app, 1011FMTheAnswer.com, Amazon Alexa, iHeart, or radio.com. Breaking news and stimulating talk. 101.1 FM, The Answer.
This weekend, don't miss the biggest and oldest gun show in Arkansas. The Arkansas Gun and Cartridge Collectors Club will have over 400 tables of new and used guns, ammo, knives, reloading supplies, antiques, and collections you can't find anywhere else. Saturday 9 to 5 and Sunday 9 to 4 at the State Fairgrounds. The Arkansas Gun and Cartridge Collectors Club is a nonprofit that helps youth shooting sports. $10 for adults, children 12 and under free, and a $2 discount for military and police with ID. This weekend at the State Fairgrounds.
All right, Monday edition Sean Hannity Show. Only 260 days till the ultimate jury. You, we, the American people, we get the right to weigh in. Also on Monday, what's really going on with the AG and the investigations. We'll have a full coverage of all of it. It's all coming up Monday on the Sean Hannity Show.
Ladies, do you need an afternoon of laughter?
On average, a woman will use 75,000 words a day. A man only uses 25,000 words a day.
Heart-touching stories and teaching in dealing with life problems?
Because we have to repeat everything 3 times.
Then join Patsy Claremont, best-selling author and original Women of Faith speaker.
Each of us has different gifts. Do not say to me you do not have one. It will get on my nerves.
Jan Silvius, Bible teacher and radio host.
My passion is that women would be able to move beyond their past and embrace the future God has for them.
And Anita Renfro, nationally known comedian.
One day you will wake up and you will realize that it is entirely possible for your eyebrows to migrate.
Saturday, February 22nd at James H. Clark Auditorium in Conway from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. Group discounts available, so gather all your friends and make a day of it. Tickets available at PatsyClaremont.com and AnitaRenfro.com. Full Circle, a gathering of fine friends, Saturday, February 22nd in Conway. The next Dave Ellswick classic movie is a story of love, betrayal, and redemption.
I think now I shall pay a call on Yvonne. Maybe get on the rebound, huh?
Well, when it comes to women, you're a true Democrat.
From 1942.
It's December 1941 in Casablanca. What time is it in New York?
Casablanca.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world.
Starring Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman.
I was informed you were the most beautiful woman ever to visit Casablanca. That was a gross understatement.
Casablanca shows one time only, Tuesday, March 10th, 7 p.m. at the Riverdale 10 VIP Cinema.
Play it, Sam.
You must remember this. In Casablanca in December 1941, a cynical American expatriate encounters a former lover with unforeseen complications. Get your tickets now at Riverdale10.com. Casablanca, Tuesday, March 10th at Riverdale 10 from Dave Ellswick and 101.1 FM The Answer.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show. Thank you for joining us today. This means you're listening to us on 101.1 FM The Answer. And if you should happen to go out of the range, you can tune into my Facebook page, Kim Hammer, or you can go to the Kim Hammer Show Facebook page and be able to pick it up. I'd appreciate if you'd promote that among your friends, because this show is relevant for all of Arkansas, and so we want all Arkansans to have access to it. We wish that you just push that out so your friends and neighbors and families in the four corners of the state would know how to listen to the Kim Hammer Show. Before we have David Ray, who's joining us on the phone here in just a second, I want to remind you of a event going on tomorrow morning for Zane Westbrook, who is, I believe, 4 years old. He's having a kidney transplant that his dad, Kirk, is going to be donating to him. in a couple weeks. And tomorrow morning at Holland Chapel Baptist Church down in Benton, they will be doing a fundraiser pancake breakfast from 8 to 11. If you have a church home, hopefully that'll give you time to go down there, get breakfast, and get back to your church home. If you're looking for a church home, just plan on staying over, wear jeans or whatever you got. They're not a judgmental church. They'd be glad to have you sit in services and worship with them while you're down there. The money is going to be given to the Children's Transplant Association in order to be able to help cover the cost of this. I've actually known Kirk since he was 4 years old, maybe a little younger. I used to be associate pastor down there at Holland Chapel, and Carolyn, his mom, was secretary, great lady, and his dad. And so I've known this family for a long time. I can tell you they're worthy of the support. If you can't go, there is a Facebook page that you can look up under Zane Westbrook, give you all the information, and you can help make a donation for that. Tonight at 6 o'clock at the Enclave in Benton, which is across the street from the main fire station next to White's Furniture, right there on East Street in Benton. Alan Clark is going to have a meet and greet from 6 to 7. We'd love for you to stop by and just get a chance to meet him, ask any questions that you'd like to ask. He'll be there from 6 to 7 o'clock tonight at the Enclave. I want to throw in one other public service announcement. If you've got an event in your area that meets the criteria of helping the community as a whole that you'd like me to announce, I don't mind taking a little time to do that. The Salem Fire Department down in Benton, Saline County, North Saline County there, are going to have a pancake breakfast on Saturday, March 7th. They are a volunteer fire department. They have possibly one of the highest run volumes of all volunteer fire departments in the state, and they would appreciate your support. They'll be going from 6 to 11 o'clock. That's going to be out at the Salem Elementary. They're going to have, MedFlight and the other medical helicopters in. A lot of people that'll be there to meet and greet, especially all the politicians, so you can ask them questions. And so I'd encourage you to just put that on your calendar. Want to say thanks to my sponsors, which would be Everett GMC Buick down in Saline County, Alcoa. Go down and see Dwight and Susie. They'll take care of you on a good GMC product. Also, Phillips Mountie Duke. Phillips Mountie Duke down there in Saline County, Highway 5 and Spring Hill. You're looking for a rental property, commercial property, residential property. They will take care of you in the Central Arkansas area. Go down there and see those guys. They will take care of you, those guys and ladies. And then also want to thank Edward Food Stores. They're all over Central Arkansas. Great stores, friendly people, clean stores, curbside service. You can call in your order or email, text in your message. You know what I'm trying to say. You can go online and order your food. There you go. And they are a very clean, friendly store, so I encourage you to support them. All right, online today, we have David Ray, who is a candidate for District 40, which is the House seat that is currently held by Doug House, and he is decided not to run, and so he'll finish his term this year, and either David Ray or one of his opponents will be running or, filling that seat. And so, David, glad to have you on the phone. I want to thank you. I know you're out doing door-to-door today, and I know early election starts soon, so I want to thank you for joining us. I did extend to some of the others the opportunity to be on, but they said they were too busy to call in, so I appreciate you taking the time to call in. And do we have you on the radio there?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kim, for the invite, and I'm glad to be here with you.
Very good. So you were emailed a list of questions. The other candidates that have come on the show on Saturday have been given the same list of questions, so there's not really gotchas to this. It'll give you an opportunity to give people an opportunity to hear where you stand on the particular issue. So first of all, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself with regards to your personal life that you feel comfortable sharing, and about your family, just to give them a feel for who you are as a person.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Maumelle with my wife, Jessica. Jessica works for the Pulaski County Special School District, and we have a 2.5-year-old daughter named Charlotte and a 5-week-old son named William. So we got a little bitty one in the house. And my job is I'm the chief of staff to our Lieutenant Governor, Tim Griffin. I've also been a senior advisor to U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, and ran the statewide conservative group Americans for Prosperity Arkansas for several years, where we focused on lowering taxes and limiting the size of government, stopping government waste, things of that nature. Been proud to call Maumelle my home for the last 8 years. And at any rate, looking forward to getting to some of the issues.
Well, and you kind of touched on it there, so let's go on to the next question. That is about your personal or business experience that makes you believe that you're qualified to hold the office that you're running for. So what, in your opinion, are your qualifications to hold the House of Representative seats for District 40?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. So I decided to run for the House because I think we need more people in the legislature who don't just talk a good game when it comes to conservative policies and principles and values, but actually upholds them and works to advance them. And that's what I've done for the last decade plus of my life is work on a full-time basis to advance our shared conservative principles and values and policies. You know, I mentioned the work I've done for the last handful of years as Chief of Staff to Lieutenant Governor Griffin. I've worked hand in hand with him on issues like lowering our tax burden, on things like reducing spending in state government and expanding school choice. I worked to help elect Senator Tom Cotton to the U.S. Senate, replacing Mark Pryor, who cast the deciding vote for Obamacare and put liberal judges on the Supreme Court. So I've worked to help take our country in a different direction. And as state director of Americans for Prosperity, you know, I was a consistent fighter of tax increases, worked to help defeat tax increases both at the state and the local level here in Pulaski County, whether it was property taxes or sales tax increases. You know, I was a consistent champion of the taxpayer and, you know, worked to help reduce burdensome regulation in state government. Like in 2017 session, I worked with conservative legislators that some of your colleagues, like Senator Hester and Representative Dotson, to repeal our state's prevailing wage law. It was a burdensome regulation that drives up the price of public construction projects like courthouses and roads. And so we were able to save taxpayers significant sums of money by doing that. So that's a little bit about my background and some of the things I've accomplished. And I'll take that same approach to the House of Representatives and work to fight for our conservative values each and every day.
So you've kind of hit on it again, but let me go ahead and ask you a question. Why are you running on the Republican ticket?
Yeah, well, all the things that we just mentioned, you know, I'll mention a couple of others. You know, I'm 100% pro-life. I'm staunchly pro-Second Amendment. You know, the Republican Party is the party that fits with my set of values. You know, we need folks who will uphold the Republican Party platform. And I'll be honest with you, you know, a lot of times folks run as Republicans just to get elected, and they don't really follow through on the things that are in the platform. You know, I have a proven track record of fighting for those things, and I don't have a problem standing up to politicians of both parties when they don't uphold conservative values.
So how would you define conservatism? I mean, there's, you know, honestly, you've been around a long time. I know you've been a Republican for a long time. When you use the word Republican, there's the rhino type of Republican, but then there's the conservative type of Republican. So how would you define the term conservatism? Because when you're out on the campaign trail, it's real easy to throw that word around in order to get votes. But when it comes down to what it means, how it looks, and how it's defined, how do you describe it, or how do you define it?
Yeah, to me, at the core root of conservatism is defending our constitutional rights, defending the inherent sanctity of life and the right to life, and also limiting the size and scope of government. So those are really, to me, the core pillars of conservatism, and everything else is sort of an offshoot of that. So taxes, for example, you know, we believe in lower taxes as Republicans, and that comes from working to limit the size and scope of government. You know, there's some folks that think the answer to every problem is a tax increase, and that government can solve every problem from crabgrass to male pattern balding. You know, I don't believe that. You know, I think that there's a lot of things that are best left to the private sector to do, that the private sector does better. And so, you know, that's, to me, that's the root of conservatism: defending our Constitution, defending our right to life, and limiting the size and scope of government. That doesn't mean that government doesn't have legitimate functions. There's plenty of legitimate functions of government, but we should focus on those core functions and not try to reach too much into people's personal lives.
All right. So the next question was your position on taxes, but we'd be redundant because you pretty well stated that. So moving on to what's your position on social issues as it relates to the establishment of laws? Over the time that I've been a legislator, we've dealt with several issues that dipped into society and how society should function and the laws that would govern society issues. That could be anything from the severity of the punishment for a crime that's committed down to legalization of recreational marijuana and so many other areas. So how do you approach, or how would you approach the making of laws as it would impact society type issues?
Yeah, that's a great question, because there is a little bit of tension between letting people live their lives and also, in upholding certain societal values that we all know are good. And so, I believe that government does, as a social conservative, I do believe that government has a responsibility to uphold some of our traditional American values. And we do in some areas have to have laws that protect society and protect others. I do believe that ought to regulate with a light hand, as light a hand as possible. But, when it comes to things like protecting the sanctity of life, that to me, that's not just a quote unquote choice. That is quite literally a matter of life and death. And so in that instance, I do think the government ought to step in and regulate that. You mentioned marijuana. I am not a proponent of legalizing marijuana for recreational purposes. We already have medical marijuana in Arkansas, as you well know. But I do not think we should have recreational marijuana. And that just stems from my belief that, when I travel with the lieutenant governor to tour businesses, large businesses, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, everybody says the same thing. They can't find enough qualified workers who can pass a drug test to fill all the jobs we have available. And so, if you're working at the Caterpillar plant down on South Faulkner Lake Road, where we were a couple of months ago, you're working with machinery that's tons, like it weighs literally tons. You can't be working on one of those machines if you're high. It's a danger to you. It's a danger to the person next to you. And so that, that's not an all-encompassing answer, but I hope that gives folks a insight into how I would view those issues.
One of the, and I just had Chris Dickie on with Natural State Recovery, and we were talking about the new treatment center out there at the old Oak Grove High School, and we're talking about the capacity of the beds compared to the population and everything. And unfortunately, when you deal with substance abuse, regardless of whatever the front door that you chose to get into the cycle of dealing with substance abuse, it goes from one thing to another. So it may start off as marijuana, but when that doesn't do it for you, you're going to move on to the fentanyl. And when that doesn't do it for you, you're going to move on to the harder and harder until finally, you are addicted. So one may not get you started, but it is the pathway or the doorway into the house that entraps you in it. That's a hammer tone right there. By the way, on that point, the views expressed by the host of the show are mine and mine alone, not a reflection on the radio station. Take care of a little housekeeping there. All right, David, who is running for District 40. David Ray, candidate for House Representative District 40, currently held by Doug House. Thank you for taking time out of your door-to-door schedule to share a little time with us. One of the greatest amounts of the state budget is allocated to public schools. What are your thoughts on schools in general, and state any position you may have with regard to how you see the future directions of schools going in Arkansas?
Yeah, well, education is one of the biggest issues facing our state. And I can tell you, Kim, as the father of a 2.5-year-old daughter and a newborn son, this issue is not theoretical to me, as I know parents who are listening all across the area can relate to. It's a personal issue. And, we need good schools of all kinds. You know, my approach to schools is all of the above. We need great schools of all different kinds. You know, our public schools are going to be the solution that meets the needs of most families. And so we need great public schools that teach kids to read. Our literacy rates are stunningly low in this state, and we have to improve on that. And we've got to have good public schools that do an effective job of introducing kids to STEM at an early age so that they can be prepared. We can crank out a workforce that's prepared to meet the needs of the jobs of tomorrow. I'm also a proponent of school choice. And so, you know, I subscribe to the view that parents, not the government, should be the determinant of where and how their kids are educated. So if parents decide that a charter school in their area is a better fit for their kid than the public school that the government has owned them in, I think they ought to have that option available to them. Similarly, if parents, you know, wealthy parents already have the option to send their kids to private school, I don't see any reason why parents of middle and low income families shouldn't have that option through a program like opportunity scholarships, like the state of Florida has. You know, the state of Florida has over 100,000 kids that are able to attend private school on opportunity scholarships that are funded by tax credit contributions. So, and I'm a proponent of homeschooling as well, you know, for families that choose that option. It's not the best option for every single family, but for families that choose to do that, I support their choice to do that. And the most important thing, though, is that we have excellence in education. You know, we ought to hold people to high standards, and we ought to demand great results. And, you know, that's where I think we need to be focused on education.
Second greatest portion of the budget, or a great amount of the budget, is spent on the Medicaid budget. And the ruling came down out of the Supreme Court, which struck us from being able to have work requirements on the Arkansas Works program, which drastically changes the name and the image of what it was intended to do. So what are your views regarding expanding Medicaid services or anything along the lines of meeting the healthcare needs of Arkansans?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. You know, you're right. It is a looming issue for our state budget. And, you know, Medicaid's a program that was intended for the indigent, the poor, the blind, the disabled. And over the years, you know, especially after Obamacare passed, Medicaid has grown at an unsustainable rate. And you know, by expanding Medicaid, we're now using that program that was intended for the most truly needy among us to now serve a different population, which is that of, you know, with the expansion anyway, it includes able-bodied, working age adults with no dependents in many instances. And so we're talking about folks who are of working age. They're not retirees. They're of good health. They're not disabled. And we're talking about people with no children, and they're qualifying for free government health insurance policies. And, you know, we're at a point where we've made the legislature made the decision to expand it. And that's where we are. And now we're trying to figure out how to responsibly manage that program. So, you know, I applaud Governor Hutchinson for seeking a work requirement on this. I think that, you know, that's just common sense. And most Arkansans agree that if you're being provided government funded private insurance, you know, private insurance is paid for by the government, and you're able to work, you should work, in fact, or at least, you know, volunteer, attend school, training of some type. And so, we've got that's an issue that we're going to keep grappling with, because there's no simple answers. But, you know, I support efforts like that work requirement to really control the growth of that program.
Okay, we're down to about 3 minutes. So let me just hit you quick on a few of these. Virginia's just gone stupid. That's all I can say on Second Amendment rights. So what's your position on Second Amendment?
Yeah, I'm staunchly pro Second Amendment. I'm a life member of the NRA, member of Gun Owners of America. You know, I believe firmly the Second Amendment is an individual right, and I would not do anything to undermine our Second Amendment rights. I don't support the so-called red flag laws. I think they have significant Second, Fourth, and Fifth Amendment concerns associated with them. I think we need to pass a stand your ground law, frankly, in Arkansas, because it will strengthen the definition of self-defense regarding the duty to retreat. I think that's a common sense step that over 30 states have already adopted, and we're sort of lagging behind there. So those are some of the things those are some of my thoughts on the Second Amendment, but none of that crazy stuff like Virginia's doing. We don't need any of that.
So where do you think life begins?
I believe that life begins at conception and continues until natural death. You know, I'm proud to be endorsed by Arkansas Right to Life, PAC, and you know, that was the issue that first drew me to be a Republican, Kim. You know, before I knew anything about marginal tax rates or occupational licensing regulations, you know, that fundamental moral question of whether our society would allow for the killing of innocent human life, that I knew that was the greatest moral issue of our time, and it's what drew me to be a Republican at a very young age.
All right, and then with regards to in about a minute or less, tell us what's going to be your priority items when elected, if elected, to hold District 40. What's going to be your priority items going in as a legislator?
Well, I'm going to look for every opportunity to defend our constitutional rights to the extent that they're threatened. But I really want to get in there and reform our tax code. I believe our state government taxes too much and spends too much. And as a result, we have sort of a crappy business climate. You know, Tax Foundation says we're 46 out of 50 in business tax climate. So I want to help fix that, be part of the solution so that we can continue to grow our state and attract good paying jobs.
All right. Anything else you want to share with the listening audience?
Check out my website, www.rayforarkansas.com, and you can find me on Facebook too.
Hey, David, I really appreciate you taking time out of the door-to-door campaign you got going on out there and spending a little time, and hopefully it's been beneficial for you and beneficial for our listeners. We've had on David Ray. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you for having me, Kim.
You're welcome. That was David Ray, candidate for District 40, House of Representatives. That is the seat previously held by Doug House, who has chosen not to run, and he'll finish out his term the end of this year. So I appreciate David being on the radio with us. A couple things I want to remind you of, and John, how much time we got? Hold me a flag there. Zane Westbrook fundraiser, 4-year-old down in Saline County, going to be having a kidney transplant. His dad, Kirk, is going to be donating it. That's going to be from 8 to 11 tomorrow morning at Holland Chapel. You can go by and get a pancake breakfast. All monies will be going to the Children's Transplant Association in order to help cover the cost. Alan Clark's got a fundraiser meet and greet tonight, 6 o'clock at the Benton Enclave. And then also I want to thank our sponsors, which would be Baxley, Penfield, Mowdy Realtors down in Saline County, also Edwards Food Store in Central Arkansas and throughout Arkansas, and then Everett GMC Buick down in Saline County. I want to thank John, who's been keeping me accountable on our time frame behind the glass window back there, and Ben over here, who monitors and keeps everything running on the side over here. We've got a great show lined up for next week. Just listen in, watch our Facebook page, and this is the Kim Hammer Show. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you for joining us today, and aren't you glad you live in America and blessed to live in Arkansas? Have a great day.
101.1 FM, The Answer. KDXE FM, Kamak Village, Little Rock, a Salem Media Group station.